Sometimes I sit and wonder if happiness is really something that we should earn or if it's something that we just inherently deserve. And the reason why I have this question is because I realize that when we create ambitions for ourselves, when we think about the quality of our lives and the quality of our emotional states, and at least for me, when I think about am I happy, what does it mean for me to be happy, and what makes me happy, is that it's always goal oriented in the sense that in order for me to find joy today, I need to have completed this task and that task and this task and that task. If I haven't completed the majority of these things, then I don't think I deserve to be happy because I'll feel unproductive. I'll feel like I have not done enough with my life today. I'll feel like I've wasted a day of my life. But then I think about the fact that when I was much younger, when I was a toddler, for example, I didn't have these kinds of thoughts in my head. I was just happy to be alive, happy to run around, happy to see my family, happy to see my friends, happy to kick a soccer ball. I was a carefree spirit. And I think a lot of us can relate to the fact that when we think about younger versions of ourselves, or we can at least think about versions of ourselves so we did not have to care so much about whether or not we did enough today to earn the right to say that we can be happy without regret. And to some extent, I think it's reasonable to set standards for a day and to set goals and to set bare minimums for us to continue to progress as human beings and in the modern day, and for our own ambitions for us to be able to work towards the things we need to do. Maybe we want to do really well in school, so we will definitely find some fulfillment and joy in the fact that we were able to study a good amount of subjects today, or that we finished all our homework today. Maybe we want to get better at a video game, so we will find satisfaction in the idea that we practiced and we trained our capabilities in the video game. But now I ask a question, really just for the sake of asking the question, to make sure that I'm not just following a script for the sake of it, but I understand why I'm following the script. And it's this idea of why is it that I need to dangle a carrot in front of myself to say, this carrot is called happiness, and you will only be able to eat this carrot if you complete this laundry list of items. Otherwise, you don't have the right to say, oh, today was a good day. You don't have the right to smile if you haven't done enough to progress your life and to become a better human being. And the reason why this becomes a bit scary to me is because while right now I reach all of my goals for the day, or a majority of them, and I can say to myself, yes, I deserve to be happy today. What happens when I end up growing into a human being who is very capable of doing a lot of things? And as my capabilities grow, the difficulty of my goals increase. And as the difficulty of my goals increase, despite an increase in capabilities, it still becomes harder to reach those goals. It's less likely for me to achieve the perfect day or the ideal day. And now, what's going to happen when I don't have an ideal day? Well, it already happens now. I feel a bit guilty about the day I've had. I'll tell myself I wish I could have studied more. I wish I could have done this homework, that homework. I wish I could have said this, said that. I shouldn't have said this and that. And if I get enough of those days over and over and over and over again, I worry about what kind of mental state I will be in the long term. Because I'm a believer of the idea that when it comes to our mental states, they are built up on the little things that happen day by day, moment by moment, hour by hour. And whatever happens most often is most likely to be our most common mental state, or our resting or baseline mental state. So if I'm hardly ever happy because I always feel like I don't do enough, then it's going to be very hard for me to justify this idea of I deserve happiness. I should be happy right now. And if I can't justify the idea of I deserve happiness and I should be happy, I can't be happy. And if I can't be happy and that's my baseline, I would assume that it would be really hard for me to be able to enjoy the fruits of life, to enjoy the little things and even the big things like family, friends, and just being myself. So that's a reality that I am very afraid of, and I take a back step and I wonder and I ask myself, but what is even the point of trying to dangle happiness like a carrot in front of me? Because at the end of the day, I still think there are inherent reasons to find some form of happiness. I'm not saying that we should carry smiles on our faces forever and permanently like that one horror movie, but I'm saying that we should find joy and appreciation in whatever we can, because I think that's what's going to keep us going. And I think for every single human being, we deserve that. I understand once more, it's a lot harder for certain human beings to find sources of happiness and fulfillment than others, especially depending on the environment that you're in, how you grew up, and where you live. And heavens forbid and God forbid if you don't have a house to live in. I think in situations like that, yes, it's a lot harder to find happiness. But I think if you're not in a situation like that, if you're alive, if you are working towards something, and it doesn't have to be something grand or expected like an education or a degree or a job, no matter where you are, even if it's just as simple as working on the idea of just waking up in the morning more often, or working on something as simple as learning to play an instrument, or just working on this idea of finding more appreciation within yourself. I think so long as you keep being yourself, you keep living, even the most bare minimum routine things that we think about, like eating, drinking water, sleeping, even if it's not on time, sleeping 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day, so long as you do the very, very bare minimum bring things of keeping yourself alive, I think it still proves that, hey, I value this life. This life is worth living, and I continue to work on this life. And I think that's just a reason to be joyful. I think the idea of just living your own life, being yourself, hanging out with people, and even though we feel guilty about this idea of seeking sources of pleasure like watching movies, playing video games, watching Netflix, and things like that, I think we do those things because at the end of the day, we seek out happiness, we seek out enjoyment, because that's a very big reason as to why we do a lot of things that we do. We do a lot of work, we make a lot of money, and we work really hard because we want to facilitate this idea of being able to make ourselves happy. And I don't think it's because we need to earn happiness, but I think it's because we inherently deserve happiness. And in a crazy psychological way, we always find ourselves in situations where we push ourselves to be happy. Now, when we think about the deeper part about this, or when we look at this outside of the vacuum, I think there will always be reasons to improve certain aspects of our lives. Like if you ask me, if you're not sleeping 8 hours a day and you're around my age, which is about teenager age and all of that, or you need to do some cognitively demanding things, you need to work on that. If you're spending 7 hours a day on video games and you have responsibilities like school or work, that is something you need to work on. I'm not saying these things are going to be easy to work on, or that it's entirely your fault, or that you suck because you're going through these things. But I want to be blunt and brash to say that you need to work on these things. And yeah, it could be because of the environment that you're in. I know that when I was younger, or at least when I had a higher workload on myself, I clung to video games because they were low effort, they were giving me a place to release stress, and they made me happy. And at the time, school wasn't making me happy, so it was easier for me to play video games for hours on end. Sometimes there are situations, or you're put in a storyline in life where these addictions feel very appealing. But I still think that you need to understand what type of environment you're in, what kind of life you want to live, and you just have to just gradually work on that. You don't need to make big hits of progress every day, but just gradually work on that. And I think just for the mere fact that we as people were able to do things like that, and that we are able to just try to work towards an amazing life for ourselves, I think that says enough about whether or not we've earned happiness. So what if you reached all your goals for the day? So what if you didn't? You still lived through the day. You made it through the day. And I'm sure you did more than nothing. I'm sure you did at least one goal in your to-do list, or at least you achieved something that was not on your to-do list but was still very important. And I think that in and of itself is proof that happiness should be inherent. I think you shouldn't really try to move the goalposts or set goals to prove that you need to be happy, or to prove that you've earned happiness, because those goalposts will always move. If you tell yourself, I'm going to be happy if I buy a Suzuki Swift, once you get the Suzuki Swift, you're going to tell yourself, I'll be really happy if I buy a Mustang. Once you get the Mustang, I'll be really happy if I buy a Lamborghini. And it'll keep going and going and going. And then once more, the question becomes, when am I going to earn this happiness? So I'll be honest, this has been a very, very tangent heavy journal entry, but I hope you did find some value in it. And once more, the main takeaway message that I try to deliver is that I don't think happiness is something that has to be earned. I don't think you have to prove that you deserve happiness. But I think for the mere fact that you're a living, breathing human being, you're working towards things and that you care about who you are and who you're becoming, I think for those reasons, you deserve happiness. And I think for those reasons, you should be okay with letting yourself be happy. Yes, there are some situations where we can improve ourselves here and there, but those are those situations. I don't think those are 100% attached to happiness. I think they may improve quality of life and maybe make it easier for you to be happy within yourself in the long term. But when I think about the short term, I really do think that happiness shouldn't be something that you try to force yourself into earning, but something that you already feel like you deserve and something that you already feel like you've earned for the mere fact that you're being yourself and you're trying to work towards improving yourself. And even, let me not say trying to improve yourself, because I think that sets a gatekeeping goalpost. Just for the mere fact that you're being yourself and you care about yourself, I think that's a good reason to say you deserve happiness. And I think that's a good reason to say that happiness is inherent. So, yeah, that's what I have for you in this journal entry. Once more, I hope you found value in it. And if you did, I hope to see you in the next one.